reinventing that Liverpool 2014 diamond, Donny van de Beek's new positional role in the midfield, could Rashford excel alongside Ronaldo up front, and the three players that Rodgers could look to bring in if he became Manchester United manager, all coming up. But before that, for cheap good quality football jerseys, retro jerseys and tracksuits, go over to www.jerseyfifa.com. I myself have bought quite a few shirts from Jersey FIFA, including a Cristiano Ronaldo 2003-2004 Manchester United retro jersey, which was high quality and I was very happy with it, as well as some tracksuits including a PSG tracksuit I purchased quite a while ago. And all products have been at a great price and high quality, so I would definitely recommend them. So go to the description and use code ATLANTISFOOTBALL to get 5% off. So before I get into how Rodgers would set up this Manchester United side and the players he could look to bring in, let's first identify what sort of a manager Brendan Rodgers is and analyse his tactical setup not just at Leicester but at his previous clubs as well. So as I've said in previous videos, you can usually put managers into two different categories, either a knockout manager or a league manager. In my video looking at how Antonio Conte would set up Manchester United, I went over this in a little bit more depth, but I also discussed it in my Zinedine Zidane video, and both of those videos will be linked in the description below, so you might want to check out those after this video. But in terms of Brendan Rodgers, it's quite hard to say whether he's a knockout manager or a league manager. This is because he does have a defined philosophy and he's a very good tactician, using his possession-oriented, high-pressing approach, which I will explain in more depth in just a minute. But in terms of that, he knows exactly what he's going to do. He rarely adapts his style of play to the type of squad he inherits. He likes to build a team, as he's done at Leicester and previously at Liverpool and even Celtic as well. And when these managers are able to combine this with their ability in the transfer market to rebuild a squad, this does tend to lend itself to being more of a league manager, as building a squad with a defined philosophy does seem to have more advantages over a 38 game league season, with managers who are a little bit more adaptable and versatile in terms of their style of play to do with their squad and also the opposition. They tend to prefer knockout games because of their ability to adapt their system and get the better of the opposition over 1 or 2 games. But the reason I wouldn't necessarily categorise Rodgers as a league manager is because his sides do tend to tail off towards the end of the season, and he does struggle when it comes to pressure moments to build his side up and win big games. If you think back to Liverpool in 2013-2014, they completely crumbled towards the end of the season, and you could also point to Leicester's last 2 seasons when around February or March they did seem favourites to get that top 4 and ended up finishing 5th both seasons. But also Rodgers is a very good man manager. If you listen to him speak, he definitely puts a lot of emphasis on building a relationship with the players and throughout the squad, which is incredibly important for keeping squad harmony, stopping parts of the squad fracturing off, and I do think that this tends to help a manager convey their message throughout the squad and not just to the starting 11, which can be very important throughout a season. And I do think this attribute of Brendan Rodgers is why he's been able to sustain such success at Leicester and why he went on to win the FA Cup last season. So Rodgers is a good man manager as well as being a very good tactician with a defined philosophy. But what exactly is that philosophy, both with and without the ball, and how has he set up Leicester and some of his other teams throughout his career? At the start of his career with Swansea, he did use a 4-3-3, very much in the mode of Pep Guardiola's Barcelona. At Celtic, we saw him predominantly use a 4-2-3-1 system with an asymmetric possession shape, with Kieran Tierney playing as an advanced fullback pushing forward down the left side, whilst Lustig at right back retained a deeper, narrower position, creating a back 3 in possession. At Liverpool, we saw him first use a 4-2-3-1, but as they signed Daniel Sturridge and Raheem Sterling became a prominent member of the first team, he transitioned into a 4-4-2 diamond, which almost won Liverpool the league in the 2013-2014 season. It was this season that really showed Rodgers his tactical flexibility, adapting his system to get the best out of the players that he had. His 2 best players were Daniel Sturridge and Luis Suarez, so to get them in their best positions, he used that diamond system with Raheem Sterling in behind them, with Gerrard at the base of the midfield, Henderson on the right side, and either Coutinho or Joe Allen on the left side of the diamond. Using the likes of Sterling and Suarez in narrow positions meant that when Liverpool won the ball back in their own half, they could transition the attack quickly by playing a vertical pass into either Sterling or Suarez's feet and have them carry the ball forward into the final third. Steven Gerrard's defensive weaknesses were protected in the diamond with 2 players either side of him, but it also allowed him to drop deep to get on the ball and play as a regista, being the side's main way of progressing the ball from the build-up phase into the opposition's half. Obviously, Luis Suarez's fantastic season was a main reason why Liverpool were able to compete for the title out of nowhere really, but Rodgers' system really got the best out of not just Suarez but also Sturridge and Sterling as well. And later on in the video I'll come on to how he could maybe replicate this sort of system with Manchester United. But another great quality of Rodgers which he showed during this Liverpool season was his ability to tactically adapt to the opposition's weaknesses. And when Arsenal came to Anfield in the second part of the season, Rodgers showed just how good his tactical ability was by changing his system to expose Arsenal's weaknesses.
I decided to play Daniel through the middle because of his pace against Mertesacker. And then just Louis, not as a real wide player, but for him to stay and occupy Monreal, who at that time was one of their best attacking fullbacks. And I felt that the idea for Louis was to try and, when Monreal attacked, to stay up the pitch, to see if that would keep him back. And then from the left side was Raheem.
This game finished 5-1 to Liverpool, with Liverpool's front line absolutely destroying Arsenal's back line, and that was down to how Rodgers had set up that front line to take advantage of Arsenal's weaknesses. At Leicester he used several different systems, but the one he used from the start the most was a 4-3-3 system. And Didi played at the base of the midfield with Maddison and Tielemans ahead of him. However, Maddison would be positioned a lot higher up the pitch in the half space between the opposition's defensive and midfield lines, whilst Tielemans would drop into deeper areas. This would allow Ricardo Pereira on the right side, playing as a right back, to push forward down the right channel, keeping the width on the right side, and with Tielemans in a deeper position, this would allow a Jose Perez to drift inside and position himself in the half space. This triangular circulation of movement down the right side would allow a Jose Perez to drift infield unmarked sometimes and receive the ball between the lines, and it's this sort of coordinated movement patterns which allows you to open up the opposition side. As with Solskjaer's Manchester United, the players moving into the half space move in there early but remain static, and this makes it easy for the midfield line of the opposition to position themselves in a way to easily cut off the passing lanes into the half space and stop United progressing the ball forward. Getting two players into the half space between the lines is a massive feature of Rodgers' play, whichever system he uses. When using a 5-2-3 shape, we often see Rodgers' side in possession move to a 3-4-2-1, with the wide players either side of the centre forward Jamie Vardy dropping into the half space. And with the double pivot, this allows Leicester to create a box in central midfield, with the wing backs pushing forward to keep the advance width in the system, and with a back three, Leicester also have a wide base to circulate the ball around the opposition's front line. But Rodgers hasn't just created a fluid, well coordinated attack, he's also created a very well organised defensive shape, alongside an aggressive press high up the pitch in the opposition's build-up phase in their defensive third. A good example is here against Manchester United, where we see Leicester using a box-shaped press in United's defensive third, with Kelechi Iheanacho and Jamie Vardy pressurising United centre-backs, and a Jose Perez and Yuri Tielemans pushed up tight to man-to-man press both Fred and Matic. And what this means is that when United try to play out from the back, as soon as Fred receives the ball, Tielemans is on him immediately, causing Fred's poor back pass, which allows Iheanacho to round the keeper and put the ball into the back of the net, showing how Rodgers' high pressing can be used as an offensive weapon. A good example of Brendan Rodgers adapting his style of play defensively was in the FA Cup final against Chelsea. So Leicester were playing a 5-2-3 shape, with Kelechi Iheanacho and Jose Perez either side of Jamie Vardy up front. Out of possession in Chelsea's build-up phase, we would see Leicester press Chelsea in a 5-4-1 shape, which allowed both Iheanacho and Jose Perez to close down Chelsea's wide centre-backs, because if they had pressed in say a 5-3-2 shape, there would have been space wide of the front two for Rudiger and Christensen, the two wide centre-backs in Chelsea's back three, to dribble out with the ball. So using a four-man midfield enabled Leicester to stop this ball progression. But in the middle third, we saw Brendan Rodgers, instead of reverting to that 4-5-1 shape when in their own half, we saw Leicester drop into a 5-3-2 shape, with Iheanacho sitting a lot higher up the pitch than a Jose Perez, and Perez really was playing more as a third central midfielder in a central midfield 3, rather than as a wide midfielder in a midfield 4. With a Jose Perez position so narrow, this stops a pass from Jorginho into Mason Mount in the half space, but also Rodgers' back 3 specifically nullified Chelsea's ability to work the ball into the two players in the half space in behind the Leicester midfield, which were Mount and Hakim Ziyech. As with having three centre-backs, this allowed the wide centre-backs Fofana and Soyuncu to push out onto either Mount or Ziyech if they received the ball. So I've showcased how Brendan Rodgers is a very tactically adept manager, able to set up a well-coordinated aggressive press high up the pitch, make positional changes in his defensive shape to shut off the opposition's strengths, whilst also setting up a very positionally fluid, well-coordinated, possession-based system which allows him to get the best out of his key players. But how would he set up this Manchester United side? Well, I think looking looking at this squad, Rodgers would start with a back four, and because Brendan Rodgers' side do like to play a possession oriented system, playing out from the back when they can, but also looking for direct vertical passes when the option is there, I think Lindelof and Varane are going to be his best options at centre back, though he'll probably switch Maguire and Lindelof in and out, with Eric Bailly being the third choice option. I think one of the systems he will use will be a 4-3-3, which will become a 3-1-4-2 shape in possession in the middle third, with Rodgers using Wan-Bissaka and Shaw in a similar sort of way to how he used Kieran Tierney and Lustig while he was at Celtic, instructing Shaw to push forward down the left side and telling Wan-Bissaka to retain a deeper position, creating a back three when in possession. In that deep single pivot role, he could go for either McTominay or Matic. I suspect he would start off with Matic because he is a better forward passer, and that may aid Rodgers' style of play, particularly with them looking to thread balls into players between the lines. Ahead of Matic, I think Rodgers would go for either Donny van de Beek or Paul Pogba in that left-sided central midfield position, and on the right side I think he'd go for Bruno Fernandes. Ronaldo would obviously start as a centre forward, and I think we'd see Jadon Sancho playing from the right and Marcus Rashford playing from the left. Now in possession, as I said, this would move to a 3-1-4-2 system, with Jadon Sancho and Luke Shaw holding the width, both playing like natural wingers, and Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba would be given the role of 3-8s, either dropping deep to receive the ball as Tielemans did, or moving up between the lines, sitting in the half space as we saw James Maddison do in Leicester's 4-3-3 system. With Shaw advancing forward down the left flank, I think we could see Marcus Rashford move in field, playing the role of a Jose Perez and looking to make darting diagonal runs in behind the back line, so providing that running ability in behind alongside Cristiano Ronaldo, and you could easily see both of them playing as split strikers, as we have seen Rodgers use both Iheanacho and Jamie Vardy at Leicester. Now I'll come on to how I think Rodgers will set up this Manchester United side out of possession, but let's first look at another system that he could potentially use. Rodgers could also potentially use a similar 4-4-2 diamond to the one we saw him deploy at Liverpool. This would allow him to get Paul Pogba, Van der Beek and Bruno Fernandes on the pitch at the same time, all taking up central positions. Most likely this would mean that Van der Beek would push forward into the space between the lines alongside Bruno Fernandes, with Paul Pogba retaining a deeper position alongside Nemanja Matic, while the two fullbacks, Luke Shaw on the left side and probably Diego Dallo, because of his offensive ability, over Wan-Bissaka on the right side, pushing forward, providing the width in the system, allowing Greenwood and Ronaldo, the two centre forwards, to take up wide forward positions, keeping both opposition centre backs occupied. Now there are a few concerns I would have with United currently playing this system. First of all, they would need a better offensive right back than either Diego Dallo or Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Also, Paul Pogba is currently injured, so that would mean either McTominay or Fred would have to come in alongside Donny van de Beek and Bruno Fernandes, which isn't ideal, and I do think United would need a better deep single pivot rather than Matic or McTominay, who are decent but they aren't very press resistant, and their forward passing ability could definitely be improved, and they don't really have the athleticism to break up counter-attacks in the way that United would need from this system. So before I look at potential players that could be brought in, how would Rodgers set up the side out of possession? Well, as I've said in many videos, the defensive setup doesn't really have to correlate to the possession-based system, but regardless of the system that Rodgers uses, he's going to be using a man-to-man aggressive press, pushing players up onto the opposition side, and unlike Solskjaer, who often just presses in a 4-2-4, I think we'll see a lot of deviation from Rodgers depending on the opposition shape, maybe pressing in that V shape with Bruno Fernandes and the two wide forwards pushing up onto the centre backs, and having the two wide midfielders ready to push out and close down the opposition's fullback should they receive the ball. I also think Rodgers will use Cristiano Ronaldo in a much smarter way than Solskjaer does. Instead of asking him to constantly press, he's going to be instructing him to position himself in a way that cuts off a pass to an opposition player, which is going to narrow down the options that the player with the ball has, and in doing so making it harder for the opposition to play out of United's press. So I've gone over how Rodgers could potentially set up this Manchester United side, but which three players could he look to bring in to improve the squad further? So I do think Rodgers would be looking to bring in two central midfielders, one industrious ball-winning central midfielder and one more creative deep line playmaker to either replace Paul Pogba or add competition in that area. So the ball winner who could play at the base of a diamond, or as the more defensive minded player in a midfield double pivot, is Aurelien Tchouameni from Monaco. I spoke about him many times on this channel. I think he's one of the best ball winning central midfielders in Europe at the moment, and he's only 21, nearly 22, and alongside his insane tackling and intercepting ability, he's also a good long passer and very press resistant, able to dribble out of a press using his powerful dribbling, which is going to help United progress the ball forward. Tchouaméni would cost around £40 million, and the other central midfielder I would look to bring in would be Lyon's Maxime Cucurella, who would cost around £25 million with just 1 year left on his contract come the summer. And Cucurella, like Tchouaméni, is currently 21, nearly 22, but instead of being more of a ball-winning central midfielder, he's more of a Marco Verratti type. He does have the defensive qualities, being very solid in terms of his tackling and intercepting, but he's very persistent, able to use his low centre of gravity to play out of an opposition's press. He's an exceptional short and incisive passer, which is what United need from a central midfielder, able to move the ball quickly and keep ball circulation efficient. So he's going to be a perfect partner for Tchouaméni, either in a midfield double pivot or playing wide of him in a diamond, but in possession, dropping into those deep areas, allowing either Van der Beek or Pogba on the other side to push up the pitch. And the third player I've selected is of course a right back to improve upon Wan-Bissaka's offensive ability, and I've gone for Tariq Lamptey of Brighton, who's only recently just turned 21, but he's already improving massively, with his close control dribbling in the final third being much better than Wan-Bissaka's, and he's a better crosser as well, so that's going to improve United's end product in the final third, and he's extremely quick as well, which is going to aid United's high defensive line. So if he can improve his defensive qualities, such as his one-on-one defending and his positional play, which are already pretty good, he's going to become an elite level right back. He has got a contract until 2025 at Brighton, so he'd likely cost in excess of £40 million, though I do think that would be a reasonable price that United should pay. So thank you for watching. I've also got a video on Zinedine Zidane at Manchester United, so check that out, it will be in the description below, along with my video looking at Marcelo Gallardo at Manchester United, and I will be releasing videos on Erik ten Hag and Mauricio Pochettino as well.